So I'm looking for a little bit more braking power out of the CB. Look, I'm a heavy guy, so I put a lot of pressure on these front brakes. And they're pretty good actually, they're not too bad. But when I jump off my Tiger with the Brembos, it's a big drop off. So what I'm going to do is actually use some Brembo sintered pads in the Nissan calipers, or the Nissin calipers, sorry. I know that will wear my disc a bit more, but this isn't a high mileage bike, so it's not really going to have much of an impact on me. So what do I need? Obviously I need my pads. I may need to take out a little bit of fluid from the reservoir. We'll see how that goes. Toolkit obviously, bit of brake cleaner. But when I take the old pads out, what I need to do before I push those pistons back is just give them a bit of a clean with soapy water and get rid of any grit or dust that's left lying around there. And last of all, I have some brake grease. Don't put any other type of grease on your brake pads. Don't put copper slip, regular grease or anything like that. Use high temperature grease for brake pads if you need to use it anywhere. I'll just have a tiny bit on my pins for this caliper. It's something I actually had to do for my Triumph as well, my old Daytona. In this case, these I put organic pads in these, and they were hopeless. They were hopeless. I could have dragged my feet on the floor and stopped myself quicker. So these were much worse than the CB, I will say. So some sintered pads went in those as well. So time for this one to get them. Pad change on these Nissan calipers. I keep saying Nissan, of course. It's Nissin. These Nissin calipers is dead easy. It's basically the two pins. Whoops. That's about it. That only goes on one way. So just mind that. I'll clean those pins up, but they're not too bad actually. Okay, just need a little coaxing out. Gotcha. Yep. Chipped in a few places. That probably wouldn't make me change them. They're a bit wet. It's just because I've recently washed the bike. Chipped in a few places, you can see. That wouldn't overly worry me, but good to change. So now I'm going to have to push the pistons back. See here? I'm going to have to push these pistons back to get the new calipers in, because obviously the pads in, because they're going to be wider. But before I push those in, I just need to try and give them a bit of a clean with my brush. And just to allow me, you don't have to do this, but just to allow me to get in and give these a little bit better of a cleaning, I'm going to just loosen the calipers off the fork leg. I torqued these down not too long ago when I did the Bart factory conversion, so that's grand. I can just torque them back down afterwards. There, that just lets me clean around here a bit better while those are off. So nothing fancy. Just trying to get the grit away and any dust. As I say, I'm going to be pushing these pistons back in. So I want to give my seals a fighting chance. I don't want to push a piece of grit back in with them and give myself a big headache from just a simple pad change. So it's only an extra 5 minutes on the process. Excellent. Clean up the mess I made on the floor. It's only a bit of soapy water, so I don't have to get this spotless. I have some brake cleaner aerosol, but I don't need it. The dust is wiping off this just fine. Good. Okay. I'm going to mount these back on here, and I'll put a bit of thread lock. What I'll do is I'll just put them back hand tight first. Once I have the pads in, I'll put a bit of thread lock back on these and torque them down to the right torque setting. Good. Okay, I may have to remove some of the fluid from the reservoir when I put these new pads in. I may not as well, but I may. So if there's no space left in here, there's nowhere for the oil to go, the brake fluid to go when you push the pads back. So you'll get in trouble. So I have my tank covered, protected, so I don't spill any of this. Yeah, this is quite tight. With the bike at this angle, this brake fluid's fairly close to the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to suck some of that out. Yeah, I'm going to suck some of that brake fluid out, because I know when I push the pistons back and the calipers, this is going to make this overflow. And one more for luck, I think. Yeah. Great. Now I have a decent level, so when I push those pistons back in, this isn't going to overflow. So now I need to push my pistons back either side to make room for my new pads. So I'm going to do that. A lot of people would do it with a hefty screwdriver or something like that, and yeah, look, it's fine if you're really careful, as long as you don't scratch these surfaces here. I'm going to try it with a plastic item first. Yep, I've got my piston moving there. This is just an old Stanley cutter. Great. And before I move on to the other side, the other pistons, I've just checked my reservoir and make sure that's not overflowing. It shouldn't be, because I've taken a good bit out. Let's have a look now. Good. Actually, I think I'll take some more of that out, because I've got the handlebars turned to give me access to the caliper. This is at a bit of an angle, so you know, it's a bit close to the edge there, so I'll take a bit more of that out. So my fingers are spotlessly clean. That's great. They're going to drop down a bit. Might even have room to get the pad in the other side without pushing the pistons back too much. Let's see. Not quite, so I'll have to push them back a tiny bit. Just the same as I did with the first set of pistons. Perfect. Just the job. Just the job. Now, tiny bit of brake paste for my pins. You see it's silver in colour. Just a thin coating will do. One of those little packets will last you, you know, several changes. Excellent. So that's that high temperature brake paste. No need to smother them. Right, I'm going to wash my hands before I start mucking around with that caliper. I don't want to ruin my pads on day one. Right, just have to line up my pads and my caliper, my path for my pins. Let's pick on that first one. Right, we got you. That rear one is just sliding down a tiny bit. So something to pull it back with. Out you come. Gotcha. I knew you'd do that. My new pad is dropping down out of the way, so it's a bit of trial and error, nothing difficult, just trying to stop it falling down like that, you see. What I'll do is I'll temporarily hold the base of the pad that side with the lower pin and get the top of this clip in first. Gotcha, 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 gotcha. Good, that's loose for now, so I've got that. Now I can back this lower pin back off to get this in the right place. You feel that clip just click into place there? Yeah. That's that side done. Before I move on to the other side, I'm going to torque these down and torque these down so I've completely finished one side. I know these pads are still loose and they're not grabbing the disc yet. What I'll do is I'll give the disc a clean with that before I push the pads to make contact with the rotor. So as I say, I'll torque those first and then I'll just repeat on the other side. So 17 Newton meters for these pins. That's not a lot. They don't need to be tightened rock solid. 17 Newton meters is not a lot at all. Break these and you'll regret it. 31 for these. See, that's not too tight. I just clean these discs. Make sure I haven't got any mucky fingers anywhere. The other side's all done. In fact, what it is, I cleaned the disc while the caliper was off. It's just made it a bit easier. I'll just rotate this wheel a little bit now and do the last bit just behind those pads. I just had a little bit of medium strength thread locker on the caliper bolts. Nothing on the pins though. And but of course I did use my brake paste on those pins. So that's that. That's those pads all finished and fitted. Now of course I need to top up the brake fluid and pump those. Now I don't need to bleed the brakes because I only bled the brakes on this 4 or 6 weeks ago, and so I don't have any air in my lines, so I can just top up my brake fluid here. So that's that topped up. Obviously my lever is going to move a fair bit until I push these pads against the rotors. That's it. That's nice and firm. So I'll just top that up a little bit more, then I'm done. That's my reservoir topped up. You don't want to overfill it, of course. There needs to be some air gap there to allow for a bit of expansion. ready for the road. While I had this caliper off this side, and after I cleaned it with my soapy water, it was grand. I was actually able to push the pistons back with my fingers, so they were really nice and clean, and they went back very smoothly. So that was handy, just to push that back with my fingers when the caliper was right off, and it just made it a bit easier to clean the disc while the caliper was off too, and then I give it another run round afterwards after I've fitted the pads. So it remains to be seen though. These pads are going to wear my discs faster. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And Honda OEM equipment, the Nissin pads that are in there, GG pads, they're not sintered pads, they're not the HH pads. So, you know, I have gone out of Honda's design parameters, if you like, but I'm hoping that will give me better stopping at the front end, and the sacrifice will be that my disc is just going to wear faster now. But I've taken out a bit of insurance. There's nothing wrong with these pads. I've kept them, and if I find these pads are just far too aggressive on this rotor, I'll just swap them back. If it's just chewing it up in no time, I just get rid of them. But I don't think it will. It will accelerate the wear, but I don't think it's going to eat through them. But just in case, I've got my old pads. I do have some sintered rear Brembo pads as well, but I'm going to defer fitting those because if I find these front pads far too aggressive or they don't work out very well, if I end up putting the original Nissin pads back on, I don't want an HH sintered pad on the back with a regular pair of GG pads on the front. That's kind of not recommended. So I'll leave these sintered rear pads here. I actually don't mind the back brake on this either. Well, I don't mind the front or rear brake on both bikes. It's just so I don't get off one bike that stops on a sixpence, the Triumph, and then get on this, which brakes perfectly adequately, but it's not fantastic. So I'm willing to have a bit of rotor wear for better braking, if you know what I mean. But I won't put the sintered ones on the back. These front ones could end up being a nightmare, and I might just end up binning them, who knows. We'll see though. I'll do a bit of a test drive first.
Here's one with a death wish. No, it stopped. Great to be able to go 20 kilometers from the house now, so I can get to the Curragh. Nice place to walk and stuff, or motorbike. So I've done about 50 kilometers on the new Brembo pads, and yeah, it's a worthwhile change, especially when you've got little sheep jumping in front of you. These lot wearing masks outside, oh my god. Yeah, it's a worthwhile change when you're now it's not a transformation, it doesn't change it into a Brembo stopping power front brake set, but when you're just like scrubbing off a little bit of speed, you know, gently, lightly, with the brakes, it just takes a lighter touch, which is quite nice. And you know, you get a good feel for it, whereas you'd have to be pulling on that a bit more with the original pads, what I found anyway. If you're braking in an emergency, definitely better stopping power, definitely much more of a grip. So I think a worthwhile change, and you'll just have to wait and see if they chew up my front rotor. I don't think so, because they're not like some stunning, you know, they're not making me do stoppies now or anything like that. They're just a nice feel to them, and maybe like a 20% extra stopping power, that sort of thing. Yeah, just scrubbing off a bit of speed for that corner was like dead easy. You know, just a nice light touch at the lever there at the front and a bit of back brake. That was great. So that just makes, you know, riding a little bit more relaxed as well. the least effort on all the controls. Like, it hasn't made the brake grabby, not at all, so that's great. I wouldn't have liked that if it had. Yeah, that's nice, just a real light touch, one finger to scrub off a little bit of speed for that bend. That's fantastic, really relaxed riding. Oh, that was a bit of a bump. Just like now, lovely. Again, just drop off a bit of speed. That's a lovely feel to that lever. And I don't use the back brake too often. I do in town actually, but out on the road there's no real requirement because I'm not braking hard anywhere really. And so I'll be quite happy putting that Brembo pad on the back now. I've done these fronts and I'm happy with them. I've got to say again, there's nothing wrong with the Honda brakes or the Honda brake pads. Which way am I going now? Is it sat nav hasn't caught up with the oh, it has now. There's nothing particularly wrong with the Honda brake pads or the Nissin brake pads Honda use. I just like a little bit more feel on this. Yeah, actually, I don't think it's the actual braking force that is most impressive about the pad change, or the thing that's nicest about it. I wouldn't. Most impressive sounds a bit over-exaggerated, doesn't it? The slow speed town control, just the light touch on controls to brake. That's probably the nicest part of it, really, rather than the overall increase in braking. There is an increase in braking force, if you like, but it's the nice low speed increase for the low effort it takes to use it, if you know what I mean. Geez, I'm getting so fucking full of shit, it's unbelievable. I'll just stop there.